Your pain doesn't disqualify your purpose. Why the women who've survived the most are the ones who healed the world. Welcome to Soft Girl Era, the sacred space where strong Black women unlearn survival, rediscover softness, and reclaim the joy, rest, and freedom they deserve without guilt, without apology, and without explanation. I'm your host, LeAnne Dolce, pronounced Dolce, like sweet softness whispered in French. And I'm your guide from burnout to boundaries, from doing to being, from strong to soft, and loving every second of it. Today, I want to share something with you that came from a conversation I had recently with someone who has truly changed the way I think about resilience, forgiveness, and what it means to be a blessing in this world. Her name is Wendy Stark. And let me tell you, Wendy is not just surviving, she is thriving with grace, purpose, and an unshakable faith that has carried her through some of the most unimaginable trials. Wendy's story is a testament to the power of choosing softness even when life has given you every reason to harden. She is making the world a better place simply by refusing to let trauma define her and instead allowing her experiences to become a source of strength, compassion, and healing for others. Wendy has walked through fire, literally and figuratively, and she has emerged not hardened, not bitter, not broken, but beautifully whole, deeply compassionate, and radically purposeful. She is proof that the women who have survived the most are often the ones who heal the world the deepest. Now, I want to start with something that might surprise you. We often think that healing means erasing the pain, that once we've done the work, the scars should disappear and we should be able to move forward as if nothing ever happened. But what Wendy taught me, and what I want you to really sit with today, is this: healing is not the same as erasing pain. Sometimes the most powerful version of success, the most authentic version of strength, comes from carrying your story forward without letting it define your future. Wendy's journey shows us that survival is not just about getting through trauma. It's about choosing to remain compassionate, purposeful, and grounded in faith, even after experiences that could have hardened your heart, closed you off, or made you bitter. And that choice, that daily intentional choice to remain soft, to remain kind, to remain open, is what makes her story so revolutionary. Let me tell you a little bit about Wendy's story because it's important that you understand the depth of what she has walked through. Wendy was born as an unexpected blessing, and her life has reflected that calling through both hardship and service. She survived a horrifying fire. She survived a serious car accident. She endured verbal abuse in relationships, the kind of emotional violence that chips away at your sense of self, your worth, your peace. And then, in an act of extraordinary generosity, she made the life altering decision to donate a kidney to her ex husband, even though the procedure was difficult, dangerous, and changed her life permanently. 7 months after that surgery, she made the equally difficult decision to leave that marriage, to reclaim her own well being, to choose herself. And if that wasn't enough, Wendy also experienced the pain of losing the closeness she once had with her father after he remarried someone who made that relationship painful, someone who made it difficult for her to maintain the bond that had once been so strong. Through all of it, fire, accidents, abuse, sacrifice, loss, Wendy remained committed to being resilient, forgiving, grateful, and spiritually anchored. She didn't just survive, she chose to remain a blessing. Now, I want you to think about that for a moment. How many of us have been taught that strength means pushing through, that resilience means never breaking, that being a good woman, a good daughter, a good partner means giving until there's nothing left? Wendy's story challenges that narrative. It asks us to consider whether true strength might actually look like something softer, something more intentional, something that honors both our capacity to give and our need to protect our own peace. Let me share with you three key insights that came from my conversation with Wendy. Three truths that I believe can shift the way you think about your own journey, your own healing, and your own purpose. The first insight is this: your pain does not disqualify your purpose. Trauma may shape your journey, but it does not get the final word on your identity or your future. Wendy's life is proof of that. She has faced physical danger, emotional pain, relational abuse, and long term life changes, and yet she has remained emotionally grounded, kind, and purposeful. She didn't wait until her life was perfect to start living with intention. She didn't wait until all her wounds were healed to start being a blessing to others. She carried her pain forward, but she refused to let it become her identity. And that, my friends, is revolutionary. Think about the fire Wendy survived. Think about the flames, the fear, the chaos, the aftermath. Most people would carry that trauma as a badge of proof that life is dangerous, that the world is unsafe, that they need to protect themselves at all costs. But Wendy didn't do that. She allowed that experience to deepen her compassion, to strengthen her faith, to remind her that every day is a gift. She didn't let the fire consume her spirit, she let it refine her. And then there was the car accident, another moment where life could have ended, where everything could have been taken away. But again, Wendy chose to see that moment not as a curse, but as a reminder of her resilience, her strength, her ability to endure. She didn't become fearful, she became grateful. She didn't become closed off. She became more open to the beauty of life, more intentional about how she spent her days, more purposeful about the impact she wanted to make. And then there were the relationships, the verbal abuse, the emotional violence, the slow erosion of self worth that happens when someone you love tears you down with their words, their tone, their disregard. Wendy endured that. She lived through that. And she could have let that experience make her hard, make her distrustful, make her believe that love is always conditional, always painful, always unsafe. But she didn't. She chose to forgive. She chose to protect her peace. She chose to remain kind, even when kindness was not returned. She chose to remain loving, even when love was not reciprocated. And that choice, that daily intentional choice to remain soft in the face of hardness, is what makes her story so powerful. The second insight is this: forgiveness is a strength, not a surrender. Wendy's story shows us that you can choose peace, kindness, and grace without pretending the hurt never happened. Forgiveness doesn't mean you erase the memory or excuse the behavior. It means you refuse to let bitterness take root in your heart. It means you protect your peace by releasing the weight of resentment. Wendy chose resilience and forgiveness even when relationships were painful, even when family dynamics shifted, even when she had every right to be angry. She chose to remain loving rather than bitter. And that choice preserved her character, her joy, and her sense of self. Let me take you deeper into this. Wendy's relationship with her father was once very close. They had a bond that was strong, loving, and deeply meaningful. But when he remarried someone who made that relationship painful, someone who seemed to despise Wendy's presence, someone who made it difficult for her to continue to have that closeness, Wendy had to navigate emotional distance, disappointment, and the grief of a changed relationship. She didn't become bitter. She didn't lash out. She didn't cut him off completely. She chose resilience, forgiveness, and a commitment to remain loving. She preserved her character even when circumstances were less than ideal. And that, my friends, is what it means to be soft in a world that taught you survival. Wendy could have held on to that pain. She could have let it fester, let it grow, let it turn into resentment and anger and bitterness. But she didn't. She chose to forgive, not because the hurt didn't matter, but because her peace mattered more. Not because the relationship was perfect, but because her character was more important than her comfort. She chose to remain kind, to remain loving, to remain open, even when it would have been easier to close her heart. The third insight, and this one is so important, is this: you can be a blessing even while healing. You do not have to wait until life is perfect to help others, to lead well, or to live with purpose. Wendy's journey reminds us that healing is not a destination, it's a process. And in that process, we can still show up, still give, still serve, still be a light, as long as we are also protecting our peace, setting boundaries, and honoring our own needs. Now, let me take you deeper into Wendy's story because I want you to see how these insights played out in real life. Wendy's decision to donate a kidney to her ex husband is one of the most extraordinary acts of generosity I have ever heard. She placed another person's life above her own comfort and safety. The procedure was difficult, it was dangerous, and the aftermath changed her life permanently. But here's what's so powerful about this part of Wendy's story: she didn't let that act of sacrifice trap her in a relationship that was unhealthy. 7 months after the surgery, she made the decision to leave. She chose herself, she chose her well being. And that decision, that boundary, was just as important as the initial act of giving. This is where so many of us get stuck. We think that if we give, if we sacrifice, if we love hard enough, we have to stay. We have to endure. We have to keep giving, even when it's costing us our peace, our health, our joy. But Wendy's story teaches us something different. It teaches us that generosity and self preservation are not opposites. You can be kind and still set boundaries. You can be loving and still choose yourself. You can be a blessing and still protect your peace. Think about what Wendy did. She gave a part of her body, a vital organ, to save someone else's life. She endured a dangerous procedure. She changed her life permanently. And then 7 months later, she walked away. Not because she didn't care, not because she was selfish, but because she recognized that staying in that relationship was costing her more than she could afford to give. She recognized that her well being mattered. She recognized that she deserved peace, joy, safety, and love. And she chose herself. That is not weakness. That is not selfishness. That is strength. That is wisdom. That is self love. And that is what so many of us need to learn. Now, I want to talk about what all of this means for you, for us, for the high achieving Black women who are listening right now, the ones who have spent years in survival mode, the ones who have led teams, raised families, held down households, carried communities, and are now exhausted, ready to shift from constantly grinding to finally grounding in joy, peace, softness, and self prioritization. Wendy's story is a mirror. It reflects back to us the truth that we are allowed to rest, to heal, to set boundaries, to choose ourselves without guilt, without apology, and without explanation. It reminds us that we do not have to wait until we are perfect to be purposeful. We do not have to erase our pain to move forward. We do not have to carry the weight of everyone else's expectations in order to be valuable. So here's the question I want to leave you with today, the question that I believe can shift everything. What would change in your life if you stopped asking, why did this happen to me? And started asking, how can my experience become a blessing to someone else? What if your pain, your trauma, your hardship is not a disqualification, but a preparation? What if the very thing that tried to break you is the thing that will make you a beacon of hope, a source of strength, a living testimony of grace? Wendy Stark has shown us that it is possible to survive fire, accidents, abuse, sacrifice, and loss, and still choose to be kind, to be forgiving, to be purposeful, to be soft. She has shown us that healing is not about erasing the pain, but about carrying your story forward without letting it define your future. She has shown us that you can be a blessing even while you are still healing, that you can set boundaries and still be loving, that you can choose yourself and still be generous. And so, my dear sisters, I want to challenge you today. I want to challenge you to stop waiting for permission to rest. Stop waiting for the perfect moment to set a boundary. Stop waiting for someone else to validate your pain before you choose to heal from it. Stop waiting for life to be easy before you decide to be soft. Your soft girl era is not a destination you arrive at when everything is perfect. It's a decision you make right now, in the middle of the mess, in the middle of the healing, in the middle of the uncertainty. It's a decision to release the cape, to redefine strength, to embrace softness, to heal in real time, to protect your peace as a practice, and to turn your survival into something sacred, something supportive, something that blesses others. You have endured so much, you have survived so much, and now it is time to thrive, not by doing more, not by giving more, not by being stronger, but by being softer, by being kinder to yourself, by being intentional about your joy, your rest, your peace. Wendy's story is a reminder that you are not defined by what happened to you. You are defined by how you choose to move forward, by the grace you extend to yourself and others, by the faith that carries you through every obstacle, by the purpose that anchors you even in the storm. You are a blessing. You were born as an unexpected blessing, and your life, with all its trials and triumphs, is a testament to the power of resilience, forgiveness, and faith. So today I want you to ask yourself, how am I learning to be soft in a world that taught me survival? What role, mask, or responsibility am I no longer willing to carry? How has my definition of strength evolved? What does my soft girl era look and feel like right now? What past wound am I still tending to, and what is helping? How am I actively creating space for joy, rest, and boundaries? And how have I turned survival into something sacred or supportive for others? These are the questions that will guide you into the next phase of your life, the phase where you are no longer just surviving, but thriving, no longer just enduring, but enjoying, no longer just giving, but also receiving. This is your soft girl era. This is your time to rest, to reset, and to redefine strength on your own terms. And the world is waiting for the version of you that chooses softness, that chooses peace, that chooses purpose. So go, choose yourself, protect your peace, and live with the kind of purpose that only comes from a woman who has survived everything and still chose to remain a blessing.